I'm just gonna be honest. I went into Yoshi's Woolly World with pretty low expectations. I was expecting it to be one of those typical platformers that did nothing new and relied too heavily on its charm. As for how I feel now, well, I was partly right.
Wait, are you seriously insulting a first-party Nintendo game?
I know, just let me explain.
No, I get it. You don't like Nintendo. Ha! I knew this was gonna happen sometime. Soon you'll come crawling back to the Ouya, and I'll be the one waiting, ready to be the scar to your Mufasa.
Right.
Gotcha.
Alright, so it's no secret that Nintendo knows how to make a game for all ages. Regardless of how cutesy the visuals look, there's always some sort of offering that makes the game challenging, as long as the player chooses to make the most of it. And I'm happy to report that Yoshi's Woolly World follows suit. It's definitely one of the easier 2D platformers Nintendo's made, but it's still able to keep my interest far more than, say, Kirby's Epic Yarn ever did. A game with a similar type of look, but was frustratingly easy to the point of boredom. As for the levels, each stage introduces something new that's based around the core mechanics of the game, primarily with a focus on Yoshi's egg throw and his flutter jump. Now, something that I do have to emphasize here is how good the core mechanics of the game truly are. They're pretty much the exact same as the original Yoshi's Island, but they translate really well here. You can truly feel yourself getting better at actually handling Yoshi, something that can't really be replicated by many other 2D platforms. Even Mario, to some extent.
Wow, first you insult Yoshi, and now you insult Mario? You really mustn't like Nintendo. Just come to the Ouya and you'll be better off.
But moving on, these levels aren't flawless. In fact, they suffer quite a bit from just how inconsistent they are. You see, each stage introduces a new idea that the level is centralized around. But the only problem with this is that the interesting levels are scattered so sparingly. What I'm trying to say is that the quality of these ideas is all over the place. I found that a lot of the time I would just only start a stage and then straight away find myself going into autopilot just because of how basic some of these stages are. This is a culmination of a lot of things, but it's mainly just because a lot of the concepts shown off have been done before a million times over. Now, I understand that not every level can completely blow you away or anything, but right now it just feels like they never truly exploited the unique aesthetic, only getting inspiration from what could be thought of as platforming tropes. The levels are all a tad long as well, which makes a lot of them drag on far longer than they really need to. But in contrast, when the levels get it right, they really get it right. As in, some of them are the most well-crafted and polished concepts I've ever seen in a 2D platformer. I mean, take World 3-5 for example. You basically have to kill a bunch of mothers so you can grab their children and then throw them into the air so that they dismember into clouds, and then you can reach even more mothers and murder even more children. It's creative. Now, in the middle of some of these stages, you'll also come across these rainbow doors, allowing for Yoshi to transform into something like a motorbike, a mole, and even an umbrella because Nintendo. These were pretty cool changes of pace and were consistently well made. I mean, I would have rather they just be integrated into the levels themselves instead of a separated time challenge, but I'm glad they're here nonetheless. Now, the game is pretty easy to go from point A to point B, but the real challenge comes from 100%ing the game, or at least attempting to. All the collectibles are placed in really devious positions, which, if you're looking for a challenge, this is the place to extrapolate it from. However, when you do fall off a stage or lose all of your hearts, all of the collectibles you found up to the last checkpoint disappear completely, making you have to retread all the ground you covered again. I see why they did this, but it's a tad annoying when you have to go through the same time challenge and go through the same tedious thing over and over again just because you keep stuffing up on a little bit. But even so, there's a true motivation to collect everything, and the reward that comes from it is pretty substantial. But speaking of completion bonus, you can also unlock other Yoshis with different patterns if you collect the 5 yarn balls in each level, which is a pretty neat addition. You can also unlock special Nintendo themed costumes through Amiibo, which is some of the best use of the figures I've seen yet. But if you're like me and super stingy with spending money, I don't think you're missing out on much if you don't have any. Another thing you can unlock are some special stages once you collect all the flowers in a given world. And let me just tell you, they're some of the most interesting and distinctive levels in the entire game. I mean, I haven't unlocked them all of course, but from what I've played, they truly do provide a good reward for your efforts. But it just makes me wish that levels like these weren't locked exclusively behind collectibles. Another thing I found a bit monotonous were the boss fights, which are easily the lowest points of the game. Rehashes of the same boss sometimes work if the story accommodates them, but as you might have guessed, Woolly World's story isn't exactly incredible. You constantly have to fight variations of the same boss, which would be forgivable if they were interesting, but the bosses here feel very basic and borderline uncreative. I mean, some of them are pretty cool, but the majority of them really just involve you either spamming eggs or just licking the obvious bit of wool sticking out of them. It's pretty disappointing, especially considering some of the other bosses Nintendo's made, even back to the original Yoshi's Island. Something that I doubt I really need to go over are the visuals because, well, as you can see, they're downright delicious. Everything is made to seem almost like a play, and the woolly aesthetic is beyond cute. Some levels can feel a bit empty at times, but really the positives far outweigh the negatives here. But despite these visuals, when you look at the game as a whole, Yoshi's Woolly World is nothing really to shake a stick at. Oh, so the best thing about this game is undoubtedly its graphical charm. Everything's made in that woolly aesthetic and it just really makes for the cuteness of the overall package. So I'm going to add 3 points to this one. Something else that's praiseworthy is its core mechanics. Like I said, they are recycled from Yoshi's Island, but they work really well here, and since they are core mechanics, they really have to be really good because they're fundamental to the game and its enjoyment level. So I'm going to add 2 points to this as they're pretty good. Something else that I at least feel is pretty important is the motivation to actually 100% complete the game. And in Yoshi's Woolly World's case, it's definitely there, because even after finishing the game, I just really want to go back and complete all the levels and just try and collect everything. And that's just because the reward for doing so is really satisfying. So I'm going to add 2 points for this one. Finally, some of the levels here are really outstanding. I don't want to spoil them for you really, because they are sprinkled in pretty sparsely. But just know that they are really good, at least some of them. So I'm going to add 1 point for this one. And I say some because a lot of the other levels are really basic and just forgettable even after just finishing them. And that's really disappointing because Nintendo's usually super creative with this stuff, but here it just feels a bit lazy as a lot's borrowed from other 2D platformers and stuff that's pretty tropey in my opinion. So I'm going to minus 2 points for this one. Something else that was super disappointing for me were the boss fights. These were all over the place, to be honest, and none of them are distinct enough, especially when compared to the original Yoshi's Island and some of the stuff they did there, which was really impressive. But here it's just very underwhelming and really disappointing, so I'm going to minus 2 points here as well. Alright, let's see how Yoshi's Woolly World stacks up. So overall, Yoshi's Woolly World is a pretty solid 2D platformer, but it just doesn't do enough to differentiate itself from other 2D platformers and just has some overall missteps along the way. But if you're looking for a game to play with your children or just your family, then this is definitely a good choice and I can strongly recommend it to those people.
Man, who does this guy think he is? 6.7, that's a horrible score!
Yeah, you should give him a piece of your mind.
You know what? You're right, Cooper. I'll show you and your stupid face. I don't even like you, but I'm gonna comment anyway. And done. I just saved the city. Come on, Cooper. Let's go play some Ouya.
Yeah, okay.